Hello and welcome back to the Art of Thriving Beautiful Souls. I am your host, Tanavella, and I am so eager to share today's episode with you all, so much so that I actually moved it forward a couple of recordings because I just felt this needed to be out in the world ASAP. So introducing today's guest, Pesche Bekter, founder of Born Naked. Now, Pesche is a traveler, rapper, producer, calisthenics enthusiast, and committed nap advocate. He had in his bio, who somewhere in between a mushroom trip and a Saturn return ended up becoming a finance guy. And after years of doing the full conscious community bingo card, yoga teacher training, permaculture, nude modeling, support work, circus coaching, bodywork, Centrelink seasons, and everything in between, an experience that you'll have to listen to the EP to find out about, delivered the most unexpected curveball of his life, where he joined one of Australia's largest buyers agencies, became a top performer within 6 months, and helped clients settle over $35 million in investment properties. Now he supports the everyday Joe to not only just understand how money works, but actually build the systems, automations, and investments that build real wealth while they get on with living. So this is the financial education most of us were never given. And I personally got so much out of this episode, so I'm excited to share it with you all today. But before we dive in, a little message from today's sponsor. Now, this is from my heart to yours. As a woman, our bodies hold a power most of us have never been taught how to access. We are wired to sustain and birth life. We are wired to be highly intuitive, plugged into information far beyond the physical, and our influence, when heart-led, can birth movements. So I've created a space to fortify and amplify these feminine gifts. Now, this is really for the woman who knows she's here for big impact, who knows she's here to birth movements and create big influence. And this program is to support her to do that through coming into deeper connection with her physical body, through her sensual body, through her emotional body, through coming into deep listening of the subtle realms of frequency and information through her sensory gateways. So in a sense, this is kind of like a psychic development, but is so much deeper because it's a whole woman approach. So the program is 14 weeks, it's online, and we start on April 26. There are limited spaces, and you can apply via the link in the show notes. So if you feel called, I look forward to connecting with you. And so, finally, without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome, Pesche. So great to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Hannah. It's good to be here.
So to kick us off, I'd love to just, for our listeners, so they can understand you a little bit more, love to hear about your origin story and like what your relationship with money was growing up, and like what have been the thresholds that have brought you into this work that you're offering now.
Well, I grew up with the typical middle class existence in the suburban Melbourne, with a single mother, one sister, a dad who was absent, and basically always in that financial money stress in my life. I grew up in a really beautiful time, a time before smartphones and when we used to play on the street and everything like that. But we were always without the kind of money in abundance, and I always felt that financial stress from my mum and from my parents. So I grew up in Melbourne, and when I turned 18, I started to follow the alternative and spiritual path. So I went and did my first Vipassana at 18. Then I traveled to India and did a yoga teacher training. Then I moved to the Northern Rivers and became a permaculturalist and lived on farms and family homesteads. And I like to joke that I did the full Northern Rivers bingo card, or the alternative lifestyle bingo card. So yoga teacher, I was a circus coach, I was a nude model for hens parties at one point. I spent many, many seasons on Centrelink, worked at markets, was a Zen Tai Shiatsu therapist. And ultimately lived a super rich life in many ways, in community, in health, in adventure, uh, but pretty much in every way except financially.
Mhm.
So the major threshold that really got me into this work was about 3 years ago. My partner and I became pregnant on a trip to Europe,
Mhm.
and life hit me like a ton of bricks at that point. And I realized, despite all of the support, all of the love, all of the community that we had around us, I just felt deep inside that I wasn't in a position to bring a child into the world. And not because of lack of love, but because of a lack of financial independence and financial security. And I know many amazing families and many amazing couples who have done that, and it can be done, and it's beautiful when it is done. But I had this deep, but maybe it's a core wound, but this deep desire in me not to repeat the the struggles that my parents went through and that my mum went through.
Mhm.
So that kicked me off a on a new journey where I started to get into business. I started to read business books, learn about sales, learn about marketing. I started reading and listening to Alex Hormozy, his books, his podcasts. I started a calisthenics business where I was coaching online, both in person and online. And things started to get going there. So that was when I was 28, about two and a half years ago. And the next major circuit breaker moment was at a party, a Alice in Wonderland themed party,
Mhm.
Mad Hatter themed tea party, and there were a there was a snack table and a bunch of chocolates on the table, and I went up and greedily gobbled up a bunch of the chocolates there, only to later realize that they were mushroom chocolates, because the person who brought them put a sign just after I'd finished eating saying mushroom chocolates 0.3 grams per square or something.
Oh.
So I quickly ran some maths equations in my head to calculate how many grams of mushrooms I'd just eaten. And I realized I was in for a bit of a journey. And the mushrooms, in their infinite humor and intelligence, gave me the most unexpected lesson and journey. And it wasn't a deep dive into, the mechanics of the universe. It was basically three instructions. The first was to get off social media.
Mhm.
The second was to shut down my business. And the third was to get a corporate job and learn about finance and investing.
So unexpected from the mushrooms.
So unexpected. So, I mean, what do you do when the mushrooms gives you a task, gives you a mission, gives you a path? I mean, I know what I do. I surrender and I listen to it. And it's funny because it's the opposite of most people's story. Most people start their life in the corporate world and
Mhm.
then have some kind of revelatory experience, some kind of psychedelic experience, and go to the alternative lifestyle.
Mhm.
And I'm doing it completely in reverse. I lived the alternative lifestyle for all of my late teen and adult life. And then at 29, 28, 29, I decided to go into the world of corporate.
Mm.
So, long story short, I had some skills that I'd built up in sales through the previous 2 years of running my business. And so I searched far and wide on the internet and ended up securing a role for one of Australia's largest buyers agencies. And for those who don't know, a buyer's agent is essentially the opposite of a real estate agent. So a real estate agent works on behalf of someone selling a home,
Mhm.
where a buyer's agent works on behalf of someone buying a home.
Mhm.
So I was thrust right into this corporate environment. And what I didn't mention is I applied for their sales team, but they actually put me in the property team because they saw some kind of competency that I had. So from no previous real estate experience, all of a sudden I was working with 7 and 8 figure investors
Mm.
and helping them secure investment properties, and everything from setting up their finances, speaking with brokers, to going out into the marketplace and sourcing properties, negotiating with real estate agents, and then doing the whole contract process with the conveyancers, which is like a property lawyer, all
Mm.
the way through to settlement. And it was a massive left turn from everything that I was doing before, but I really thrived in it and it really felt like the path that I meant to be on.
Mm.
Within 6 months, I was the top performer in the company. And over the past 12 months, I've helped settle over $35 million in investment property and personally helped secure 70 investment properties for clients. So
Wow.
it's a it's a big journey. And through all of that, I started to understand what the mind of an investor was and the difference between people who have a plan with their money and those who don't. And I mean, I really believe that financial stress is one of the least spiritual things that there is. It
Mm.
keeps us contracted, keeps us reactive, unable to give or create or show up in the way that we want to. And to me, real freedom includes financial freedom, and it's
Mm.
not instead of it, and it's alongside everything we care about. So that's why I decided to do this. I wanted to bridge the gap and take everything that I've learned working with investors, learning about how the mechanics of money works, and distill it into a simple, no nonsense, no mysticism, no get rich quick, no hype version of what it really takes for an average person to build wealth over their lifetime. And it doesn't happen in a year or two. It happens over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And it happens not just for us, but for our families, for our children, our grandchildren, and eventually our legacy.
Mm.
So that
Amazing.
was a bit of a waffle there, but I hope that answered the
No,
question and was
perfect.
valuable.
It's great because, like, obviously I haven't seen you as much in the recent year or so. And like, I was aware you were in the property investment thing and hearing about that and been like, wow, and you can feel what someone's doing at a distance, but you haven't had a conversation with them. It's like, what's going on over there? That feels like,
It is a
yeah,
bit of a time warp because I knew you were in the peak of my previous life, and there has been a bit of a gap.
yeah.
Um, And it's something that I had to do for myself is I left the Northern Rivers at the beginning of last year with my partner to travel overseas, and we tried digital nomading because my role in property was remote,
Mm,
and it was the breakaway that I needed um, to move out of an environment where wealth isn't always acknowledged or openly spoken about, and even sometimes quietly cut down as
yeah.
something that's immoral or not really valued.
Hmm.
And so I did have to make a physical shift with my environment to help this new identity come online. And
Mm.
again, that's why we're going to Bali to go all in on the vision.
Yeah, beautiful. I'd love to open up into this because, like, I feel like scarcity for me has been one of my biggest initiators and my biggest teachers. And, like, whenever I did energetic work on it through kinesiology, it would always come back to, they'd be like, it's your mind. And I was like, no, 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 like, surely I have to shift something in the external. And of course, that's part of it. And what you're talking about is actually a really important part of it.
Mm,
But I'd love to go in on the mindset because I feel like every book I've read lately around this like points back to that. And I think people really forget the power that we have within our mindset. But yeah, I'm curious as to what you have witnessed. Yeah, let's start there. You spoke about like noticing
mm,
the difference in the mindset of people who are investing.
mm, mm, mm. Well, mindset is huge, but I would love to gently push back on the idea of mindset and belief and books and everything,
Mhm.
because it's something that the spiritual or alternative crowd often gets so caught up in.
Yeah.
And it's almost this idea of putting our ignorance on a pedestal, like something that we don't understand must be somehow complicated or out of our reach.
Mm.
And what I learnt with these investors is they're not necessarily smart people. They just have the right systems and they were given the right advice at the
Mhm.
right time.
Mhm.
So, what Born Naked is all about, and by the way, Born Naked comes from the idea that most of us are born without a financial education, born naked, just making our way in the world.
Mhm.
And what it's all about is actually saying, hey, it actually doesn't really matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you've been told. It doesn't matter how you're feeling. It actually, you just need to do these simple things on repeat.
Mhm.
Here's how to do it. Here's how we set it up. And it's going to happen in the background while the rest of your life goes as along as it does. And obviously, belief is a very important part of that. And so part of the program is changing the identity
Mm.
of who we are, changing it from a consumer to an investor, changing it from someone who is on one side of the system to someone who owns parts of the system. And identity is formed by our environment. It's formed by the advice that we get. It's formed by the opinions that we get around us. And unfortunately, most of us just got bad advice growing up. It's like, work hard, go to uni, get a job, pay your bills. And very few of us get the financial education that teaches us to build assets rather than just buy more things when we earn more money. So I'd love to talk about that in a moment, about the core mindset shift between the middle class and the wealthy.
Do you want to dive into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a quote that I love. I don't remember where I got it from, so credit to whoever this quote originally comes from. But it speaks to the fact that a really strong belief that I have now is that no amount of income will replace the lack of a financial education. So the quote goes like this: poor and middle class people think that the purpose of money is to pay bills and buy things. Wealthy people know that the purpose of money is to make more money. And until that really lands, and until someone really internalizes and understands that, earning more money just means you buy nicer things, you get a better iPhone, you buy fancier clothes, you go on more expensive holidays, you have higher bills, a car loan for a more expensive car, and you're still in that same point: earn, spend, save a little bit, repeat. Wealthy people know that the purpose of money is to make more money. And what that means is buying assets that eventually mean your money works for you, so you don't always have to work for your money.
Damn.
And
I could see it running through my life, and I'm like checking my own origin stories around money. I'm like,
it's it's a huge one, and a lot of us in the spiritual world are starting to do quite well as well, through businesses, through podcasts, through coaching. And I've seen it through some friends, seen it through the gram. People are starting to grow their abundance, but abundance is multifaceted, and income is only one part of abundance. And until you learn how to funnel income into assets and build a system, build buffers, and move your cash into things that compound over time, then we're always going to be stuck in earn, spend, earn, spend, earn, spend. And it's a vicious treadmill. And as you earn more, if you're on that, the treadmill just goes faster, and you got to run to keep on it. And that's basically the definition of the hamster wheel.
Yeah, okay. Can you talk about systems over willpower? Can you break that down for someone who's been telling themselves they just need to be more disciplined with money? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure that 90% or more people listening in to this call have read one of the following books: Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Barefoot Investor, The Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich. Probably listen to the podcast, The Affirmations. You've probably driven home from a festival feeling all inspired about wealth and this new business idea, or been in the car with a friend and talked about your dreams and aspirations for being wealthy. And it's not a lack of desire. It's not a lack of willpower. It's not a lack of motivation. It's even not a lack of intelligence. It's not because you didn't care enough either. It's because often care and motivation are the only thing holding it together. And a system works whether you feel like it or not. It's agnostic to how you're feeling, what's going on in your life. A system is something that just runs and works in the background. And once you get that set up, you put these things on autopilot: the investments, the moving money around to emergency funds, all the stuff that we teach, the basic financial principles that we all should have learnt when we were kids. These are the things that hold it all together. So willpower gets you started, but systems keep you consistent.
Yeah, beautiful.
Mm.
Okay, let's see. Someone's listening right now who has no systems at all, no automation, no investing. What's something like the single thing that they could do this week? Like, even if it's not like setting it all up, but like, yeah, what would you recommend as like a practical first step?
The first thing that everybody should do is they should open up a bank account separate from their current primary bank account
Hmm.
and start automating $50 a week into it.
Hmm.
Set up a direct debit transfer. Maybe it's on your payday if you have a regular salary. If it's variable, $50 a week. Don't have a card for that. Don't have any way to access that account unless you need it. Maybe get someone else to set up a password or something for that. And
Hmm.
just start putting $50 a week into an emergency buffer.
Hmm.
I've been doing that now for probably about a year and a half, roughly.
Hmm.
And there's not a huge amount in there, but it's just there. And
Hmm.
it's there for emergencies. And it just happens now. And I go, oh, yeah, that money came out. And I don't miss it because it's only a small amount.
Hmm.
But you add that up over a couple of years. And this is without even investing. We could talk about compounding interest and the effect that that has. But just think about a snowball rolling down the hill. As it rolls, it picks up more snow and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
It's when you compound, you make a little bit of money, then that money goes back in, and then that money starts making money, and that money made starts making money.
Hmm.
And essentially, it's the thing that makes people wealthy over long periods of time.
Hmm.
But without even thinking about that, the first habit would be to set up an emergency fund. This concept of paying yourself first. It's a core concept in the book, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Hmm.
One of my favorite books. It's outdated in many ways, but the key theme in that book is this concept of paying yourself first. So usually we pay ourselves last. If you're an employee, the government gets cut before your taxes come out before it hits your bank account. Then you pay your rent, then you pay your bills, and then you pay for your food, and then all the other expenses you have, and then whatever's left over, that's what you put in your savings, or that's what you put to investments.
Hmm.
To think with wealth consciousness, we need to shift that around and start to pay ourselves first. So if someone wants to take one action step out of this call, or sorry, out of this podcast,
Hmm.
is think about paying yourself first, set up a direct debit automation from your current bank account into a new bank account that you can't touch. I like Macquarie Bank. It's really simple and easy, but any bank will do. Up Bank's really cool as well. It's got a lot of cool features, but there's lots of great banks these days. Do it outside of the big four because they're just boring. And there's other more fun, better banks out there that give you better benefits, better interest rates. But
Love
to
that.
put it really
Fun banks.
simply, yeah, Up Bank is a really fun bank. Look
Hmm.
into, not sponsored in any way. I don't actually even use Up Bank myself, but as far as fun goes, it's not something you usually associate with banks. Up
Uh-huh.
is a very cool bank. So one action step for anyone here who wants to start: pay yourself first. Direct debit $50 a week into an emergency fund. You've
Hmm.
started the process of thinking like an investor, and you've started the process of paying yourself first.
Beautiful. I feel like I can hear the people who are like, but I don't, I can't because I've got to pay my bills first. Like, is there anything around that you can offer?
If someone genuinely doesn't have $50 a week to put aside,
Hmm.
then I would say they need to go back to the foundations. And this isn't a magic pill. None of this work is a magic pill that's going to make you wealthy overnight.
Hmm.
It's not get rich quick, and it's kind of a little bit boring and a little bit unsexy, really.
Hmm.
That's why I try to sex up the name a little bit by calling it Born Naked, because really what I'm selling is like, be really slow and intentional for 10 or 20 years, and mathematics tells you that you're going to get wealthy.
Hmm.
But most people want the crypto moonshot or the hot stock tip that's going to get them wealthy overnight.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, many good people I know have been scammed through following that kind of advice,
Hmm.
um, and actually help and contributed to others getting scammed because they've shared it around in their community. And it's rampant in the alternative spiritual community, and it's something I hate to see. So it's something we spend a whole week on inside the course, is about understanding scams and understanding how money really works.
Hmm.
But honestly, once you start doing it, you don't even notice that little bit going away. And I would say try it for a few weeks and see.
Mhm.
And if you really feel like it's impacting the quality of your life, then you need to go back to basics and actually have a real think about, how can I earn more money? What skills do I have? Where can I do a little side hustle? Where can I pick up some more shifts? All of these kind of things, because this isn't going to make you rich. There's an analogy of the income is the fuel
Mhm.
and the system is the engine.
Mm.
And so most people don't have an engine, so they're basically just pouring the fuel on the grass and lighting it on fire. And you're not going to go anywhere like that.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to pretend that the income side isn't important. You need to have something to start with, but you need a lot less than you think.
Mhm.
And a lot of people delay starting in the first place because they think they don't have enough. But then another year goes by, another 5 years goes by, and that $50 a week, $200 a month compounded over decades turns into hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
And I can demonstrate that with spreadsheets and charts and all of that. But for now, I'll just do it. Trust me, bro. It's what happens.
It
So
makes sense, yeah.
so even a little bit is enough to start. If you can put aside $50 a week, you're in a position to start this. If you're not, then seek help, seek mentors, seek extra work. I can't help you with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, cool. I'm curious, like with this identity shift piece, I'm curious if there's other things you noticed around identity and like, not directly mindset, but just like maybe
Mm,
the ways that people respond through being able to be in this environment and witness what you do.
mm. I think it's a great question, because what happens when people start doing this is the identity shifts automatically. And
Mm,
we go over the process within the course. It's a mindset shift from consumer to investor,
mhm,
but it happens through action. It doesn't happen through intellectualizing or through ideas. It actually happens because someone sets up an automation in their bank account. They draw up what we call the money tree, which is where we actually draw up a visual flow chart of where your money goes when it hits your account.
mm,
We start automations into people's first investments. And all of this is actually changing the tangible, felt reality of who they are and what they do.
mhm,
And we do that together in a small room of values aligned people, a small cohort of people working on their money game at the same time, using the same tools, using the same language, and actually being in a room and being in a space where this kind of thing is normal and it's not weird or out there to actually be caring about this stuff.
yeah.
So the identity shift happens as a matter of taking action.
Mhm,
And I think it's one of the most important parts, because it's not an identity of a belief from I read this or I'm excited about this. It's a tangible change of I'm doing this and I
mhm.
have the systems in place. I have the things to show, and I am the kind of person who does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, beautiful. Because I had the pleasure of jumping on your call the other night for half of it, and I
Mm.
came in when you were like doing a bit of an getting people to do an audit of where their money goes. I mean, it feels obvious consciously, but I'd love to talk about like why the importance of it and why you start with that too.
Mm, mm. So I've got a few names for it, but I call it the financial backbone, that
Mm-hmm.
process that we did, because it's the foundations of everything else that we do. Yes, there's beliefs. So that worksheet, it actually starts with, what money stories did you inherit when you think of money? What comes to your head? What stories? What are your goals? What are your ambitions? We start with all of that. Uh, but then they're the intangible things. But then we go to the actual dollars and cents, because you can have a story and you can tell one story in your head, you can tell one story to your partner, you can tell one story to your friends, but the money is black or white, black and white. The
Mm-hmm.
money, the numbers are what they are. And so it's easy to fluff around with the story in your head, and it's easy to hide behind, this is what I was told by my mum and dad, this is what I had modeled around me. And I have compassion because that's what I had as well. However, when we look at the numbers don't care what story you had. The numbers just keep growing or shrinking based on the laws of economics. And I want to, there's a concept that I've got called the hero and the villain of this whole story. So I want to touch on that in a second. But looking at the numbers, it's that sober moment that creates the foundation for everything else. And this worksheet, it gives you a projection, a custom projection based on your own habits, your own savings rate, your own debts, your own expenses, 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, and 30 years in the future. And someone can use that form and they can drag the slider around to change the contributions and the savings rate. And you can see in front of your eyes what difference that makes materially to your life by increasing your contributions into your investments by just a small amount. So the story is something we can be stuck in forever. The numbers break, it's peeking behind the curtain, breaking us out of the illusion and actually being like, whoa, it's like a smack in the face to think, if I'm going on this trajectory in 10 years time, I'm going to be 60 grand in debt. If I change this with one little change on the slider, now I'm up $200,000.
Yeah.
That seems to land for people. So that's why I start there.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, even just hearing that way from you now, just feeling the impact and the power of that, especially with the black and whiteness of just the law of economics are what they
Yeah,
I think it's, yeah, especially being around so many women who are in feminine led businesses who, yeah, you can do all the mindset stuff and the internal work, and like I definitely see the impact of that. I've had moments where I've done a session and then got off the call and sold a painting for 3 grand 5 minutes later and been paid in cash. It's like, sure, it has an impact, but how do you actually create the bones that can hold this long term? Yeah.
100%. And like I said, the income is the first part of that. And it's where most people stop. They wish for abundance, and these things do come into our lives. And I've had it myself where I've like really just dropped in with myself, either with a mantra or an affirmation, or just this really strong belief that something was going to happen, or that I was going to make a sale, or some business opportunity was going to come to me. And lo and behold, it has. And it's amazing. So I fully, totally, wholeheartedly believe in all of that because I've seen it in my life and the life of friends. But then the question is, what happens after that? You sell the painting, you get the cash, and then you spend the cash, and then
it's gone.
Then it's gone. And what happened? So this is all about creating a system that captures some of that economic currency, energy. You know, currency or money is a medium to transport our economic energy through space and time. Right? So you got paid for the work that you did on your painting, and the money is something that travels through space and time. So what I mean by that is, if we didn't have money, you would have to repay the favor, or they would have to give you something there and there in that moment. So money is something that you can say, all right, I'm storing this credit of value. I've given $3,000, $5,000 worth of value, but I don't have to cash it in right now. I can cash it in the future with someone else for something else, some other good or service. And so all money is a store of economic energy through space and time. And so all we're doing with all of these systems is learning how to best capture that economic energy and multiply it, rather than it just slipping through our fingers.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of talks lately about like how billionaires function, and like not actually really having the money themselves available, but it's in their stocks. And so they don't get taxed on that, but then they can leverage that to like get a loan and then like generate more. And it's like become very apparent that, wow, this is an education that so many of us just haven't gotten, to be more of a cog in the machine than, like you said at the beginning, owning a part of the machine.
Yeah, most people would be surprised that really wealthy people don't have just millions of dollars sitting in their bank account, because cash is the only investment that guarantees your losses, because of the villain of the story, which I can speak to in a moment, which is inflation. So you don't need to know what inflation means. All you need to know is it's making money worth less over time.
Uh-huh.
It's the reason that the cost of living is increasing. And so a quick example of that is you might have $100 in the bank. In 10 years' time, you'll still have $100 in the bank if you don't touch it, but it's only worth about $85 in real purchasing power. So money becomes worth less over time because of inflation. So wealthy people don't sit with money in cash. They have their wealth in assets that appreciate, that pay a return, pay dividends, or grow, that pay them, all these different ways. And us ordinary folk just stack money in the bank, and that money is losing value over time. Do you want me to explain the hero and the villain now?
Yes, please. Yes.
All right. Okay. So the hero and the villain are two forces that are working on your every dollar you own right now, whether you like it or not. And you don't get to opt out of either of them. Well, actually, that's not exactly true. One of them you have to opt into, and the other one you can't opt out of.
Uh-huh.
So the hero of our story is compounding. And that is your money making money, making money. And that happens quietly, relentlessly in the background. Every dollar that's earned through compounding that gets reinvested starts earning too. And that's how we grow that snowball of little green soldiers making money for us over time. And that's how there's many different maths on this. I don't want to throw too many numbers in, but just putting in a few $100s every month from the time you're a young person to retirement is millions of dollars due to compounding, even though the amount that you've actually put in is a fraction of what you end up with because of compounding.
Mm-hmm.
So Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. And whether he actually said that or not is irrelevant, but the maths of it is real. But the catch of the hero is that the hero only shows up if you invite it in. It doesn't just appear. You have to actually take the step and put your money into assets that do compound. Now, the villain, on the other hand, the villain is inflation. It's silent. It doesn't announce itself, but it's working on your money all day, every day of the week. So like we mentioned with that $100 example before, you didn't lose anything on paper, but you got poorer because that $100 buys less than it did yesterday. And that rate of inflation is increasing at a faster rate than it ever has in the past. So the confronting part about all of this is that doing nothing is not actually neutral. Doing nothing is choosing to let the villain win by default. It actually takes proactive action to bring the hero in and start turning the tide of this system that's built in place to actually keep us in this middle class purgatory that most of us spend our whole life in.
Wow, that's really great. Thank you. Yeah, I had a question around how do you support someone to build wealth in an environment that feels genuinely unstable? And like I can understand that the environment has probably always felt unstable, and particularly at the moment. But what I think you just answered that with like, yeah, to do nothing is to do nothing.
To do nothing is the only guaranteed loss.
Yeah.
It's the only guaranteed negative investment. Even the most speculative cryptos or meme coins or whatever, there's still a chance that it might go up. If you're just sitting your money in cash, stacking it under your bed, putting it in a high interest savings account, that money is losing value and you're actually sliding backwards.
Yeah.
So I do want to speak to the stability piece. The simple truth is that markets always recover. We've been through Great Depression in the 20s. We've been through multiple world wars. We've been through the Vietnam War. We've been through the global financial crisis. We've been through COVID. After every one of those market crashes, the market has returned and reached new highs. So this feeling that, oh, I don't want to invest because it's risky, if you had invested at any one of those points before and just kept on investing, that wealth would have kept stacking and kept multiplying. So this fear of it not being the right time, things not being stable, is just another thing that keeps people stuck, and it's another thing that keeps people stopping taking action.
Yeah.
And I know the world feels a bit unstable at the moment, and I feel that more than I usually do at the moment, because at the moment I'm staying with my partner's family in Sydney, and
Got the news on?
in my normal life, I would never watch the news, but the news is on from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. every night. So
Same
I'm
here.
getting the full hit of, all of the chaos that's going on in the world right now. And it's easy to get swept up in that. And I know things are not perfect in so many ways. And I'm also not here to judge anyone's views or beliefs or opinions, or actually convince anyone that the system that we have is amazing and we should all be involved in it. What I am sharing is that if you do want to get ahead and you do want to build wealth in the system that we're in, this is how you do it. And it's your choice whether you step across that threshold and dive in. I mean, I'm really doing it so I can exploit the system to get enough wealth that I can go back, do the full hero's journey and go back where I started, back on the permaculture farms in the Northern Rivers, and have my chickens and cows and bees and my community and ecstatic dance and all the thing, and not have to worry about money. But I've gotten to a stage in my life where I realize that it's the necessary evil. So I've decided personally that I'm going to play the game to the best of my ability and not be a victim of this system. I understand it now. I'm going to play it well. I want as many people who resonate with this to come along with me, build more financial abundance for themselves, for their families, for their communities, because more wealth and more abundance in our hands is more power in our hands. And our real power comes from what we choose to purchase. When we invest in companies, we receive the profits of their companies. So whether we invest or not, we're just deciding whether we're going to get profits from these companies. It doesn't actually affect the bottom line of what they do. So if you really care about being ethical, the main thing is about being ethical of where you spend your money. So if I can take money out of a bad company and use it to go buy organic food from the local farmers market and support someone doing amazing regenerative things for the land, I think that's a really good trade-off. Rather than just boycotting that side altogether and then being so broke I have to go to Woolies for my food anyway and buying food from mass commercial farming practices. So that's as far as I'll go into the ethics of all of it. And I don't know where we started from there, but I felt like that was relevant.
No, definitely. I think that's all really valuable. Thank you. I feel like I wanted to add something on, like, it's really interesting being in Melbourne and being back in my family home and having the news on. And I know you just shared you're having a very similar experience. And I want to speak to this because, like, yes, it's real and yes, it's happening, but also there's propaganda and amplification of it. But I'm remembering when I was here during COVID. And like I'd been in the Northern Rivers and I had never felt fear about getting sick until I came to Melbourne and I was in the broadcast of it. And so I think something I wanted to add is just like being really mindful of the stories we're participating in, because it's like, oh, the world's really unstable. And it's like, yes, but also you're looking at the actual tracking mathematics of like what has occurred in those moments. I'm reflecting on like where I've moved into areas where people have said there's a housing crisis, and I've just not subscribed to that story and been able to create the most wonderful environments for myself and ended up in the most incredible homes. And people are like, how have you done that? And it's like, well, I just believed it was possible. And the reason I share this in this piece is it feels like there is a lot of effort to broadcast this program of fear and uncertainty and then separation and then the survival. What I'm witnessing or understanding is like that's a great opportunity for people who understand how the system works when things crash to then buy everything up.
Yep.
And like, and like what happens if we don't participate in the story and instead move from a more informed place that's just on the ground, really practical.
And it's these exact financial institutions that benefit off our lack of knowledge. It's the banks, it's the insurance companies, it's all the financial institutions, the superannuation, all of these things that benefit from us not really understanding and being dependent on the system as it is. And the real shift is moving from consumer to ownership and owning assets, owning things that grow, owning things that pay us. In the early stages of putting the program together, I used to make a comparison of wealth with permaculture, and permaculture ultimately is known as, gardening. It's planting, having chickens, compost, planting veggies and fruits and herbs and things like that. But permaculture, what it is at its essence, is a design principle, and it can be applied and mapped out to business. It can be applied to designing cities. It can be designed to designing food forests. But one of the 12 pillars of permaculture, or I don't know if it's called pillars, the 12 things of permaculture is capture and store energy. That's one of them. And that's what we're doing here, capturing and storing that economic energy. The second is obtaining a yield, which is, all right, that energy that we've stored, how can we get a return from that? And it goes on and on and on. So there is a really beautiful overlapping of these basic financial principles and these broader design principles that map out into any system and into natural systems as well. So, to me, it's just as spiritual as anything else, understanding the system and understanding the movement of energy, understanding growing, cultivating, being a good custodian. It's no different from any other project or any other system or any other thing that we care about and believe. And so, to your point about what you subscribe to, that's why I decided and I chose to run these programs in a cohort rather than one-on-one, because it's about more than just the information. It's about subscribing to a new set of ideals, subscribing to a new way of being, new way of thinking, and new way of acting. And I found that that's so much more effective when it's done as a group.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. Yeah, just being in that collective field and feeling the momentum of like creating that together is really beautiful. Amazing. So, to kind of begin to wrap up, for the person who's listening, who's nodding along, but knows like deep down they're still not going to do anything after this episode, what do you want to say to them directly?
I would ask a question and I would say, how long are you going to wait? And how much is that going to cost you? And are you going to wait until life really gets loud and this really gets loud? Like for me, it was getting have a pregnancy. Maybe it's an injury or an illness. Maybe it's losing your job. The worst thing that you can do is get to 40, get to 50, get to the eve of one of these big life moments and lament the fact that you didn't start earlier. And we're talking the difference of not hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, depending on when you start and what your capacity for income is. So this is seriously life-changing stuff if it's approached right and if it's really organized and it's really committed to. So if you're out there thinking, all right, this is awesome, feel super motivated about that, I would highly encourage you to do something with this. If you're feeling the pull, if you're feeling like it resonates, reach out to me. But if it's not me, talk to someone. Maybe you've got a rich uncle. Maybe you've got a friend who's doing really well in business. Maybe you've got a family friend who owns property. Start to make this a conversation that is normal. Because another thing about middle class and poor people is money sits in the same realm as religion and politics. It's like almost taboo in a way. It's taboo to talk about money, where wealthy people love talking about money. So make it something normal. Talk about it with your friends, but try and talk about it with people who are maybe above the level that you're at. Try and open up to people who have been successful in this, and make this a topic of conversation that isn't on the edges, that starts to become something that is more normalized in your life, because you can pretend that, and we can pretend that it's not important, but it's the underlying program that basically runs everything.
Mm-hmm.
So go and have these conversations, talk to people who are building real wealth through property, through assets, through businesses, and I promise you'll be a lot better for it.
Amazing. I love the kind of full circle backwards journey that have watched you go on, and I'm watching you go on, and with knowing that, yeah, you're in the permaculture farms and like full wild school, living off the land, completely
Yeah,
unplugged, to
yeah.
like going back to corporate. I think that, yeah, your lens is exceptionally valuable, and I'm really stoked with how this conversation has gone. There's so many gems in here. So firstly, thank you. And
Mm.
if people want to work with you, what's on the horizon? Yeah.
Yeah, so depending on when this comes out, I'm running my next cohort in April,
Mm-hmm.
but I run 6-week live cohorts, small groups that we run through these things together. We don't just learn about the systems, we install them for you. So it's the cash flow, it's the accounts and buckets, it's the automations, it's the first investments, it's the blueprint, it's learning how to think about all of this stuff so that you have your own internal map. It's the difference between giving a person a fish and teaching them how to fish.
Mm-hmm.
So the program is designed to teach you how to fish. Now, the program is hosted in a community which is ever growing. So once you're in the community, you're in for life. You get access to all future cohorts, you get access to all future resources, and it's a growing hub of people who have decided to stop winging it and start taking their financial life seriously.
Mm-hmm.
There's another entry point which I have just started running, which is called the 60-minute money map workshop. I run them occasionally before the cohorts to give people a taste of what the work is like. So the best thing to do is probably head to the Instagram or head to the website and see what's running when the next cohort is live, or if there's a money map workshop you can join. Or if you're really getting the tug, the pull from this, and you feel like you're ready for this work, you can also head on the website and book in a call, and we can chat about how this would look like for your specific situation.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you so much, Pesh. This has been, yeah, like quite the epic kick up the bottom for me. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad it has, and I really appreciate you coming on here. And what I'll quickly say is, it was a podcast that happened all at the same time as the whole pregnancy thing, and the first kick up my bottom, which led me down this journey. And it was on an Aubrey Marcus podcast, so generally more in the spiritual vein, but it was Alex Hormozy on Aubrey Marcus's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And listening to him changed the whole trajectory of my life. So it can be as simple as one podcast, one thing that resonates, that changed the direction. So I hope there's at least one person listening to this today that this creates a shift for, a really meaningful shift that potentially spans decades and generations. So if I could have that effect on just one person, I would feel like all of the warm fuzzies inside. So thank you so much for having me on, and I'm excited to see you in Bali. And thanks to everyone who's listened today. I wish you all the love, all the abundance. And if you want to work on this stuff together, you know where to find me.
Thanks, Pesh. I got tingles.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you found something here that resonates for you to unlock more freedom and vitality in your life. And if there's something you'd love me to dive into on the show, or a guest you'd like me to have on, please get in touch via the Art of Thriving podcast on Instagram and let me know. I'd also love to make this the best episode yet, and I need your help to do that. So please share with your friends who you think could benefit from listening. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with future episodes. We are now also on YouTube, so you can watch these interviews there as well. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.